Hi everybody, this is Gwen Reyes at the Dallas International Film Festival. I'm here with Cullen Hoback, the director of What Lies Upstream. Cullen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about What Lies Upstream.
Well, What Lies Upstream, it's a political thriller that
There's
takes...
espionage.
Well, yeah. not espionage. I mean, I play the role of detective in the film, and I'm basically the surrogate for the audience, going into West Virginia and trying to expose what's happening behind the scenes when it comes to water regulation. You see, there's this massive contamination that happens there, and this is what drew me into this story. 300,000 people were poisoned.
Yeah.
And it was by a chemical that they knew almost nothing about. And the only way it was detected was due to the smell. So had there been no smell, people would have been poisoned and they wouldn't have known. So this made me ask, well, are there more protections out there? What are the protections? Why wouldn't they have known? Right. Are our regulators doing their jobs? If not, why? And it really takes me down a rabbit hole through backdoor rooms full of lobbyists and top government officials, and what starts as an investigation at the state level actually escalates to a federal, the federal level, and that shows kind of how we're all being affected by failures in our regulatory agencies.
So how did the original story find its way to you?
I got a text from my mom.
Really?
Yes. She said, did you see what's happening in West Virginia? And I had gone to West Virginia as a kid. I had family there, my uncle. And so I had somewhat of an emotional connection, and I hadn't been back since I was 10.
But you have these memories of
of course, childhood memories of being out in the woods, things like that. So some hybrid of those things motivated me to hop across the country and throw myself in the middle of the contamination. So we were there from day 2. Wow. And I was hoping that I would be able to use my penchant for investigation in a way that would be helpful to the folks there and give them some answers, because there were a lot of questions and a lot of fingers being pointed, but it was being done in the way that traditional media tends to handle these stories. Look for the easiest answer and get out.
How do you feel that the media actually handles these contamination stories? I mean, that's a great point that you bring up, because I was just thinking of Flint and how you decided to do this story with West Virginia versus something like Flint that's already kind of hot.
So I went to Flint during the film, and Flint plays a very important role in the story. Dr. Mark Edwards, the whistleblower there, he really turned my head and actually set me down a path that provided a lot of answers in the third act of the film.
Yeah.
And that's what tips me off to the problems with the EPA and the CDC and the kind of misuse of science that's happening at those agencies, and why it's not just West Virginia, it's not just Flint. I mean, there are chemical problems happening all around this country, which I can't get into without you having seen the film, really, but an easy stat is that there's 3,000 areas in this country that have lead levels that are worse than Flint. 3,000. Yeah. So, it's great that Flint got all of this attention, but we know how much it costs to start fixing things there. And really, this is an infrastructure problem that is happening all around the country.
Do you see there's any solution?
Well, money, yeah.
Yes.
And it comes down to whether or not taxpayers want to spend money on making water clean. And it's tough because this is an invisible problem. Yeah. In West Virginia, because it wasn't invisible, people demanded change. But this is so often the case with if you can't see it, if you can't smell it, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, until suddenly your kid has developmental problems or behavioral problems. But most people don't have an answer for why that happens. And in some cases, it may well be the water.
What were you most surprised to learn as the filming went about?
Well, that the level of corruption in our federal agencies. I had thought that perhaps it was just a state level problem, but there's rampant corruption at the EPA and CDC. And there's this mentality that is revealed by several whistleblowers in the film. One of them was in Flint. He had written that, the EPA has this mentality of don't find bad things, don't look for them, and when people start looking for actual problems in our environment or in the water, public health related things, they get punished for it.
Yeah.
And I think this is by and large because these agencies don't want to lose funding, or they think they have higher priorities. They don't want to seem like they're not doing their jobs by revealing that these contaminations are happening. So instead, they don't do their jobs.
Yeah.
It's
always it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, your mind will just go in circles trying to process.
I bet it's hard. I would imagine it'd be hard to sleep at night as those thoughts just kind of start spitballing into each other.
I had a very hard time sleeping while I was making this film.
Did you really?
Yeah. About halfway through it. Well, I didn't. I was struggling to figure out what the deeper problem was.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't until I went to Flint that it really opened up the story. And then I talked to a series of whistleblowers from there who explained the depth of the regulatory problem in this country and why the mindset in these agencies is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So what is the common trait that you see in a person who decides to say something, when they see something, say something?
Whistleblowers, generally speaking, are not the people you would expect.
Yeah.
They're Boy Scouts, kind of.
Really?
People, do-gooders who are really like the last people you would imagine would be the ones, in the office to come out and say something. But these are people who have just a really strong sense of ethics and morals, and who are part of who usually have gotten into something because they believed in the power of government. They thought they could do great things in these agencies, whether it's at the NSA or the CDC or the EPA, and then they get into this culture, and the system swallows them up, and then they find that they're being asked to cover up contaminations or create fake science to protect the agency. And because these agencies are so punitive, they really punish people when they blow the whistle. Your career will be over.
Yeah.
And not just that, but they will go after you personally. I mean, they want to ruin your life. They want that's the price that these individuals pay. So there are lots of very good intentioned people in these agencies who are afraid to speak out because of the cost.
So what can viewers, after they see the film, what can they do if they're so inspired to do some action? Because now I'm like, I gotta get all the filters and make sure my taxes are all paid.
There's a short-term solution for people and then a long-term. I mean, the short-term really is to find a safer water source for yourself that's not tap water, generally speaking. I can't speak to the water in Dallas, for instance. I think that we need just way more independent testing. It's difficult for people to just do that on their own or know where to go or how to interpret the results. So in general, we need more nonprofits funding brave science and brave scientists to do this kind of work. But in the film, I show that even water in Los Angeles, which is in California, which is supposedly one of the most eco-friendly places in the country, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of chemicals in my water, most of which we know nothing about. Yeah. So this is happening everywhere. It's a universal problem, and I'm not going to tell you why it's happening everywhere. That's one of the fun things to find out in the film.
You have to watch the film. But I don't want to give all the spoilers away.
I should put that in quotation marks. Fascinating things to find out in the film, but it's happening everywhere. So. Yeah, you can protect yourself. Unfortunately, going out and buying water that has been evap'd and purified and had a lot of the chemicals removed, that is not something everyone can afford to do.
Yeah.
Have
it becomes
water delivered to their house for $50 a month. I mean, for a lot, So should it be clean water for those who can afford it?
Oh, I hope not. I think it should be clean water for everybody.
Yeah, so that's the short-term solution for those who can afford it, and then the long-term solution is just much more complicated. And I think you'll see in the film it's a mixture of reforming these agencies, having more oversight, separating the political influence on these agencies so they're not beholden to political agendas.
Sure.
When science is controlled by politics, it can be weaponized. You can say, yes, we as the EPA have done all of these studies, so trust us, believe us. And that can completely shape belief.
Yeah.
But
Which is something we're seeing every single day.
Right, but when it's built on lies, even if they do it once or twice and we find out that this is the case, it undermines the entire institution, and not just the EPA, but people's belief in science as a whole. So it's extremely damaging when scientists are unethical or are being forced to be unethical. And I am very concerned right now with the current state of the EPA, where you have a longtime lobbyist, shaping the policy, someone who has spoken out against the EPA continuously, in control of the kind of science that comes out of that agency. It never looks good when a scientific agency isn't run by a scientist who has incredible experience in the field. It doesn't make sense to have some political appointee in that position. But do I think that the EPA is extremely problematic right now? Oh, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's interesting times. But I would ask you this. I mean, well, what are your thoughts? Do you think that the EPA, turning this around on you,
well, I just think that I know what your sequel to What Lies Upstream is going to be, is like now investigating the politics of the EPA and all government agencies. So,
well, it's in the film. Yeah. That's why I say it's a bit of a political thriller, and it's what my last film did as well. I mean, that film showed the collusion between corporations and the government when it came to our online privacy.
Yeah.
And the cost to civil liberties from that. And there is a severe cost when you have corporations setting health and health regulations and the laws that are supposed to protect drinking water. Spoiler alert, when a company that makes money by polluting waterways is writing the policy, you're going to get cancer.
Yeah, you're going to get cancer and have a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yeah.
Well, Cullen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And people can see the film at Dallas International Film Festival, but where else can they see it after they've left the festival?
Yeah, I mean, it's playing at a series of festivals. I can't announce it yet, but it'll be on TV in the fall.
Great.
So most people will be able to see it there. And then we're still working out the other details, but it'll be widely available in the months ahead. And we're hoping to come back to Dallas this summer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Have
you.
a great rest of your time in Dallas.
All right. I'll take that nap.
I know.